In today's video, I am going to be breaking down a 3-2 zone defense, but playing it tight. This is going to allow the other team to shoot more shots and shoot more threes. If you are able to actually allow an opposing team to be able to do this, let's say they can't shoot, then this is a fantastic strategy that you are going to absolutely love. So let's get down and let's check them out. But really quickly, if you want my deadly defensive strategies, make sure to go check out the book that is down in the description below so that you can get those strategies and be able to trap players all over the court. Now let's get down and let's check out this tight 3-2 zone. So a regular 3-2 zone is when you've got 3 players up top, 2 players in the bottom, and generally speaking, you're going to be having a man up top. Most zones, or at least most coaches, will teach you to run them inside the 3. However, teams are going to have to start expanding with older age groups because teams can, or players can are starting to shoot from extremely deep ranges. But if you are playing against a team that is unable to shoot the ball, you can run a tight 3-2 zone, which looks a lot like a 1-2-2. However, it's ran slightly different. So basically, as it is, we'll have one man on the ball. The rest of these players will be zoned up as almost like a box, almost like a 1-2-2 or a box and 1. If they pass over to this side, player 3 is going to come out of the key and player 2 is going to drop into the key. The idea here is now he's taking up the cut lane from player 1, but still covering the gap for player 4. If you want, you can start having player 5 shadowing out and player 4 starting to shadow across, but at this time, I'm not too worried. The reason why you are running this zone is because you don't care about 3-point shots taken. You're trying to bait the other team into shooting those threes as much as possible. At this time, if they were to pass to this corner, we would want player 5 to cover out. We would want player 3 to move back towards that high post, player 4 to cover that low post, and player 2 to sink, and player 1 to kind of cover that side of that key. Now it's starting to look more like a 2-3 zone. If they swing it back around, we will have our players move back to where they were, and now they're back into a 3-2 style zone. Actually, player 3 would be up and player 1 would be there. If they swing it around, player 1 to player 5, we would then have player 2 man on. We would have these players starting to sneak over. Player 1 will be here roughly, and player 3 will be covering that elbow. If they pass to this corner, we would have player 4 out, player 5 covering that that low post. Player 2 is going to be back. Player 3 is going to drop, player 1 is going to drop. The idea is you are always making sure that there is at least 4 players in the paint, which is going to basically overly force the other team to shoot as many threes as possible. Again, I can't stress this enough. This is a zone that you would use if the other team is unable to shoot the ball. This is something that you have to make sure the other team cannot do. If you are to call a timeout and you run this zone and the other team comes down and says, oh, they're not guarding our threes, and they make 2 or 3 threes in a row, guess what? You're going to be in trouble. So you have to make sure that you don't run a zone like this in the first half, maybe not the first quarter. See and test out. Maybe say, okay, I want you to try number 13 on the other team. If he is not looking to shoot the ball, or if he is bricking a lot of shots or airballing a lot of shots, okay, now we know that he can't shoot. Maybe try another player. And you can go through like that. And if you say, okay, wow, nobody can shoot on this team, you run a zone like this if they're running a 5 out, and you're going to be covering a lot of that key. They're not going to be able to get in there. The idea here is to make sure that within a foot of the key, there is no basketball that gets in this area. And I cannot stress that enough. You're running this because you don't want the ball in the paint. Because what happens when you get the ball into the paint is you start collapsing the defense, and when that happens, you're going to create a lot of openings. So for example, if the ball got into the paint here, that could be potentially very dangerous for the weak side baseline cutter for an open layup. So if you are to run this zone, you've got to make sure that it does not get into the paint. What I've seen a few times when I've ran this is they'll try to drive and kick strategy. They'll drive again, and then there's back doors open. You have to make sure that your players in the paint, they stay in that these are the spots that are very important. They need to stay there. If this happens, player 4 needs to move over, player 3 needs to drop, because then you're still in a 3-2, but at least you've got 2 players who are guarding that low post. This is a very hard thing to teach, where you drop from the top and cross over for player 4. This is not an easy zone to teach, but it gets the job done if you run it properly. Anyways, that is what a tight 3-2 zone defense is. If you want the deadliest defensive strategies, make sure to go check out my Deadly Defensive Strategies book that is down in the description below. That has helped me win a ton of games and a ton of championships. I hope that you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you guys again in my next video.